Dr. Hannah Park adjusted her telescope lenses in the quiet control room of Dajan Observatory. The midnight air felt still and expectant as she worked. Through the large windows, the night sky stretched black and infinite, studded with familiar stars. Her colleague, Dr. Jin Kim, sat nearby, reviewing data logs on his tablet, the blue glow illuminating his tired face. "I'm seeing unusual readings from Sector 4, Hannah said, frowning at her screen. "Can you check if our satellite feed is malfunctioning?" Jin tapped at his tablet, then shook his head. "All systems normal." "What kind of readings?" Before Hannah could answer, the dark sky outside erupted with light. Brilliant colors, purples, blues, and golds that had no place in Earth's atmosphere, rippled across the heavens like an impossible aurora. The light display moved with purpose, centering directly above their observatory. Jin's coffee mug froze halfway to his lips. "Are you seeing this?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. Hannah stood slowly, her hand reaching blindly for the camera controls. "Recording all feeds," she managed to say as the spectacle intensified. Through the cascading lights, solid shapes emerged. 3 vessels, each the size of a small city, descended through Earth's atmosphere. Their geometry seemed wrong somehow. Angles that shouldn't exist, surfaces that appeared both solid and fluid simultaneously. The laws of physics that had governed human understanding of the universe for centuries seemed to bend around these impossible ships. "Call the director," Jin said, never taking his eyes off the window. "Call everyone." Within an hour, the observatory parking lot filled with government vehicles. Military helicopters circled overhead. Hannah and Jin found themselves sequestered in a small conference room, replaying their recordings for grim-faced officials. "And you made first visual contact?" a stern woman from the National Intelligence Service asked. "Yes," Hannah replied. "But they must have been detected by space monitoring stations before we saw them." The door opened, and a man in military uniform entered. The others straightened noticeably. "Commander Daly, Korean Military Intelligence." He introduced himself, studying their footage with intense focus. "Have they attempted communication?" As if answering his question, every electronic device in the room, phones, tablets, computers, simultaneously displayed the same message in perfect Korean. "We come in peace. Prepare a diplomatic reception. Coordinates to follow." Similar messages appeared worldwide in local languages. Within hours, Earth's nations cobbled together a hasty diplomatic team at the provided coordinates, a field outside Geneva. News helicopters circled as sleek shuttlecraft descended from the larger vessels still hovering in the stratosphere. Hannah and Jin watched the live broadcast from their observatory, now converted to a temporary military outpost. Commander Lee stood behind them, arms crossed. "They look almost human," Jin observed as the camera zoomed in on the aliens emerging from their shuttle. The beings walked upright on 2 legs, stood approximately human height, with 2 arms and a head. But their skin shimmered with subtle iridescence, their eyes were larger and set wider apart, and they moved with uncanny grace, as if gravity affected them differently. The alien at the front approached the human delegation. Its mouth didn't move in sync with the words that projected from a small device at its throat. "I am Ambassador Trell of the Galactic Confederation. We come in peace to welcome Earth into the galactic community." The broadcast continued, showing the carefully orchestrated first meeting. Handshakes were exchanged, gifts presented, words of friendship offered. "They're being careful," Commander Lee noted, his eyes narrowed. "Too careful." "They crossed interstellar space," Hannah replied. "Of course they're careful with a new species." Lee shook his head. "No, they're afraid." 2 days later, Hannah and Jin found themselves summoned to a secure government facility. Their expertise as astronomers made them valuable consultants. They sat in a dimly lit room with military and intelligence officials, watching leaked footage from inside the alien mothership, captured by surveillance devices hidden in the diplomatic gifts. On screen, Ambassador Trell spoke with other aliens in their native tongue, now translated by Earth's best computers. Their true conference, away from human eyes, told a different story than their public diplomatic face. "These humans concern me," Trell told his council. Their history archives are disturbing. Their entire civilization is built upon conquest and warfare. Another alien, dressed in what seemed to be scientific garb, gestured to biological displays showing human anatomy. Their physical resilience is alarming. Their bodies can withstand trauma that would kill most sentient species. They continue fighting despite injuries that should incapacitate them. Their entertainment glorifies violence. Added another, displaying images from human films and games. They simulate warfare for pleasure. Many of their children's stories involve conflict and combat. Even their manner of eating is aggressive, noted one with visible disgust. They consume the flesh of other creatures. Many even preference their food partially uncooked. Commander Lee watched the footage with grim satisfaction. See, they're afraid of us. Jin looked troubled, perhaps with good reason. We have a violent history. All species fight for survival, Hana argued. We can't be that different. Another section of footage played. A different group of aliens, wearing what appeared to be military insignia, gathered in a secured chamber aboard the mothership. The Confederation Council is being short-sighted, said the apparent leader. These humans could be exactly what we need. Their primitive technology makes them no threat to us, another agreed, but their natural aggression could be useful. The coming storm approaches from the outer rim. The hegemony grows stronger. Imagine if we could harness these humans for the coming conflict. The leader continued, studying displays of Earth's military history, their unpredictability, their tenacity in battle. They continue fighting long after rational species would surrender. Would they fight for us willingly? Asked a skeptical voice. The leader made a gesture that translated to something between a smile and a grimace. They need not know the full scope of our intentions. We offer them technology, protection, membership in our confederation. In return, they provide security services. The recording ended, and the lights came up. The room remained silent for several long moments. They see us as weapons, Hannah said finally, her voice hollow. Commander Lee nodded. And potential threats. This changes our approach entirely. What do we do? Jin asked. We prepare, Lee answered simply. We learn everything we can about these aliens, this confederation, and the enemy they fear. We accept their gifts of technology, but watch for their true motives. As they left the secure room, Hannah looked up at the night sky, now permanently changed by the presence of the alien vessels in orbit. The stars no longer seemed like distant, benign lights. The universe had suddenly become both smaller and more dangerous. They came looking for allies, she murmured, but they found warriors instead. 5 years had passed since the Galactic Confederation made first contact with Earth. Commander Datley stood at the window of his office in Seoul, watching rain streak down the glass. Behind him, profiles of soldiers displayed on his wall screen. The best Earth had to offer. The peaceful integration promised by the aliens had gradually shifted. First came technology exchanges, then joint scientific missions, and finally, what the Confederation called security cooperation. Today marked a new phase, direct military recruitment. Day turned as his assistant announced the arrival of his first candidate. Ji-hoon Park entered the room with measured steps. His military posture remained perfect despite having left Special Forces 3 years ago. His face showed little emotion, but his eyes missed nothing as they scanned the room. Thank you for coming, Dae said, gesturing to a chair. Ji-hoon remained standing. Your message said this was a matter of planetary security. Dae nodded and activated a holographic display, technology gifted by the Confederation. It showed star systems at the galaxy's edge, several marked with red warning symbols. What the Confederation didn't tell us during first contact is that they're at war, Dae explained. An entity they call the Void Hegemony is advancing through the outer rim, consuming worlds. Ji-hoon studied the display. And now, they want our help. They're recruiting soldiers from Earth for what they call a peacekeeping initiative. You'll be among the first humans to fight alongside the Confederation. Ji-hoon's expression remained neutral. Why us? Their technology is centuries beyond ours. Their ships can cross galaxies. What could they possibly need from human soldiers? Dae smiled thinly. Because we terrify them. He played a classified video showing human soldiers in training exercises observed by Confederation scientists. The aliens' monitors displayed human vital signs during extreme stress scenarios. They've studied us for 5 years, Dak continued. They've found that humans have unique combat capabilities. We continue fighting with broken bones, through blood loss that would incapacitate their soldiers. We adapt to new weapons instantly. We improvise when plans fail. He paused. We do things they consider impossible. Jihoon watched the footage in silence. And you want me to join this alien army? I want you to lead Earth's first combat unit in the Confederation forces, Dak corrected. 23 soldiers are being recruited. You'll train on their vessels, learn their technology, and represent humanity among the stars. To fight someone else's war, Jihoon noted. Today it's their war, Dae replied. Tomorrow it could be ours. 3 weeks later, Jihoon found himself aboard the Confederation training vessel, Luminous Accord, orbiting Jupiter. The ship's curved corridors and oddly angled rooms made human occupants slightly dizzy. The gravity felt wrong, slightly too light. Even the air tasted different, processed through alien filtration systems. In the ship's central hub, Jihoon met his squad for the first time. Mina Song, a former tactical specialist with Korean intelligence, approached him first. Her handshake was firm, her gaze direct. Captain Park, she greeted him. I studied your record. Impressive. As is yours, he replied. Your work in counterterrorism strategic planning changed field protocols. Ta Han joined them next, his broad shoulders and scarred hands marking him as the demolitions expert mentioned in the briefing files. He nodded respectfully but said little. The rest of the team gathered. 20 other elite fighters from across Earth. Russian Special Forces operators, American Navy SEALs, British SAS, Israeli commandos, Chinese mountain warfare experts, Brazilian jungle fighters. The best Earth had to offer. Their alien instructor entered, causing conversation to halt. General Voss stood nearly 7 feet tall, with the same iridescent skin as other Confederation species, but more heavily muscled. 4 eyes blinked independently as he surveyed the humans. Welcome aboard the Luminous Accord, he said, his translation device making his voice sound flat and artificial. You are the first human combat unit to join Confederation forces. Your training begins immediately. The following days blurred into a grueling routine. The humans learned to use Confederation weapons. Energy rifles that seemed to bond with their users, responsive armor that enhanced strength and speed, communication devices that translated thought directly to speech. But it was the combat simulations that revealed the true reason humans had been recruited. On the 5th day, the squad faced their first major training scenario. The simulation room transformed into an alien landscape. Red sand, 2 pale suns overhead, jagged rock formations creating a maze-like battlefield. Your objective is to reach the command center and extract the target, General Voss explained. This scenario is designed to assess your combat capabilities. What he didn't say, but what Jihoon immediately suspected, was that the scenario was designed to be impossible. As soon as they entered the simulation field, enemy fire rained down from hidden positions. 3 squad members went down in the first minute, their suits registering fatal hits that temporarily paralyzed them. Spread out, Jihoon ordered. Mina, analyze their fire patterns. Ta, we need cover. The remaining team scattered behind rock formations. Mina worked quickly, her eyes tracking enemy positions. They're using automated defense systems, she reported. Fixed positions, predictable firing sequences. Thai studied the terrain, then grinned. The sand, it's silica-based. He grabbed his pack, mixing compounds with frightening speed. Give me covering fire in 30 seconds. When the makeshift explosives detonated, they melted the sand into glass walls, creating new cover where none had existed. The team leapfrogged forward, using the transformed terrain to advance. In the observation room, General Voss watched with his command staff, their expressions showing alarm. They're adapting the environment, one officer noted. The scenario doesn't account for this approach. Increase difficulty, Voss ordered. The simulation responded, adding aerial attackers and changing the terrain. But for each new challenge, the humans found unexpected solutions. When surrounded, they didn't surrender but instead created distractions and broke through enemy lines. When their primary weapons were disabled, they improvised melee weapons from the environment. Mina identified patterns in enemy movements that the simulation's programmers had assumed were too subtle to detect. Ta converted standard equipment into improvised explosives, and Ji-hoon led with a calm intensity, making split-second decisions that seemed reckless but somehow worked. When the simulation finally ended, the humans had completed a course that Confederation instructors used as an example of an unwinnable scenario. General Voss met with his superiors afterward, visibly disturbed. "They don't surrender," he reported, reviewing the footage. "When our soldiers would calculate the odds and make a tactical withdrawal, humans push forward. They adapt instantly. They endure pain that would incapacitate our soldiers. They improvise weapons from the environment itself." The commanding admiral studied the humans through the observation window as they celebrated their victory. "Are they as dangerous as the initial report suggested?" "More so," Voss replied. "In many ways, they are the perfect soldiers. But they are unpredictable, uncontrollable. Then we must ensure they fight for us, not against us," the admiral decided. "Accelerate production of the specialized battle armor. It must enhance their natural capabilities while incorporating failsafes." Voss looked troubled. "The humans may detect the control mechanisms." "They must not," the admiral said firmly. "The void hegemony advances. We need these war creatures, but our own troops must be protected from their savage allies should they turn on us." Back in the human quarters, Ji-hoon gathered his team. Though tired, their eyes shone with the satisfaction of overcoming impossible odds. "They're testing our limits," he told them quietly. "And they're afraid of what they're seeing." Mina nodded. The simulation was rigged to fail. They wanted to see how we'd handle defeat. "Instead, we showed them something they don't understand," Tai added. "Humans don't accept no-win scenarios." Ji-hoon looked each squad member in the eye. "Remember why we're here. We represent Earth now. Whatever they're preparing us for, whatever this hegemony threat truly is, we need to be ready. Not just for their war," Mina added softly, "but for whatever they're not telling us." The emergency alarm blared through the Confederation carrier Steadfast Dawn. Red warning lights flashed as soldiers rushed to battle stations. Ji-hoon Park sprinted down the corridor toward the deployment bay, his squad close behind. "Distress signal from Eridani 7, the ship's AI announced. Hegemony forces detected. All combat units prepare for immediate deployment." Eridani 7 was a mining colony, home to 15,000 civilians. It was also strategically vital. Its rare mineral deposits fueled Confederation ships. The hegemony had finally struck a major target after months of border skirmishes. Captain Yuna Choi waited at the dropship, checking her battle armor. Her face showed no emotion, but Ji-hoon noticed her fingers tapping a rhythm against her leg, a nervous habit she'd developed during training. "First real combat," Ji-hoon said as he approached. Yuna nodded. 3 human squads deploying alongside Confederation regulars. High Command is watching this mission closely to see if their human weapons perform as expected, Mina Song added, joining them. Her tactical display visor already glowed with battlefield projections. Ta Han arrived last, his equipment pack bulging with additional tools and materials. "If we're fighting on a mining colony, I needed extras," he explained when Yuna raised an eyebrow. Inside the dropship, 20 human soldiers strapped in. Through the viewports, they could see other vessels loading with Confederation troops, tall, iridescent beings wearing advanced armor that seemed to flow like liquid around their bodies. The ship's engines roared to life. As they pulled away from the carrier, Yuna stood to address the team. "Remember the protocols," she reminded them. "We're representing Earth. The Confederation has specific combat doctrines. We follow their command structure. We use authorized weapons only." She paused. "But we do what we need to survive." The dropship plummeted through the atmosphere. Outside the viewports, the sky turned orange with fire. The ship shook violently as anti-aircraft fire exploded around them. "Evasive maneuvers," the pilot called. Hegemony forces have orbital control. Landing zone is hot. Through the chaos, Ji-hoon studied the tactical display. The colony sprawled across a valley surrounded by jagged mountains. Hegemony forces, marked as red icons, had already penetrated the main settlement. Confederation defenders were retreating toward the central mining complex. They're being overwhelmed, Minna observed. Confederation troops are falling back by the book. Orderly retreat, defensive positions, and losing ground with every step. Ji-hoon added. The dropship landed hard, its landing struts groaning under the impact. The ramp lowered, and noise flooded in. Weapons fire, explosions, the strange high-pitched sound of hegemony energy weapons. Move out, Yuna ordered. The humans charged down the ramp into chaos. The landing zone was a wide plaza now cratered with bomb damage. Confederation troops had formed a defensive line behind makeshift barriers, firing at advancing hegemony forces. For the first time, Ji-hoon saw their enemy clearly. The hegemony soldiers moved with insect-like precision, their armor black and angular. Their weapons fired streams of purple energy that melted anything they touched. A Confederation commander spotted the humans and approached rapidly. Human unit, join the defensive line. We are executing Protocol 7, orderly withdrawal to preserve forces. Yuna acknowledged the order, but Ji-hoon caught her eye. They had studied Protocol 7 during training, a by-the-book retreat that would sacrifice the colony to save the troops. Request permission to split our forces, Ji-hoon said quickly. We can flank their advance while you maintain the defense. The commander's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of confusion or concern. Negative. Our tactical simulations show a 92% casualty rate for flanking maneuvers against superior forces. Ji-hoon stepped closer. With respect, Commander, your simulations didn't account for human tactics. Before the commander could respond, a massive explosion rocked the plaza. A section of the defensive line collapsed, and hegemony troops poured through the gap. We're out of time, Ji-hoon told Yuna. Your call, Captain. Yuna made her decision. Squad 1 with me on the main defense. Squad 2 with Lieutenant Park. Do what humans do best. The commander started to protest, but Yuna had already turned away, leading half the human soldiers to reinforce the crumbling line. Ji-hoon gathered his team. Minna, Tai, and 7 others. We're going hunting. Minna, find us a path through the service tunnels. Tai, I need chaos. While Yuna's squad joined the conventional battle, Ji-hoon's team slipped away. Using Minna's knowledge of colony layouts, they entered maintenance tunnels that ran beneath the settlement. The hegemony's advancing in standard conquest formation, Minna explained as they moved. 3-pronged attack with heavy support in the rear. If we can disrupt their command structure, they'll lose coordination. Ji-hoon finished. Ta, what can you work with down here? The demolitions expert grinned in the dim tunnel light. Mining colony means explosives, detonators, and fuel lines. I can work with all of that. They emerged from the tunnels behind enemy lines. From their position, they could see the hegemony command post, a hovering platform surrounded by guards. That's their tactical coordinator, Minna whispered, pointing to a taller figure directing troops with precise gestures. Ji-hoon divided his small team. 3 objectives. Minna takes out communications. Ta creates a diversion. I'll lead the strike team to eliminate command. The Confederation would never approve such a rigged plan. Their combat doctrines, developed over millennia, emphasized overwhelming force and minimal casualties. This human approach, small teams, high risk, improvised weapons, was alien to them. Ta disappeared with 2 soldiers, heading toward the colony's fuel storage. Minutes later, a tremendous explosion lit up the sky as storage tanks erupted. As predicted, hegemony forces redirected to the new threat. Minna's team struck next, using reprogrammed mining drones to crash into communication arrays. Confusion spread through enemy ranks as orders stopped flowing. That's when Ji-hoon led his strike team in a direct assault on the command post. The remaining guards, expecting an attack from the front, were unprepared for humans dropping from maintenance hatches above them. The battle was brief and violent. Using Confederation energy weapons augmented with improvised attachments, the humans cut through the surprised hegemony guards. Their battle armor, designed to enhance human strength while protecting alien allies from human aggression, performed beyond expectations. Within an hour, what had been an orderly hegemony conquest turned into disarray. Without central command, their formations broke down. When Jihoon's team captured their tactical coordinator, the remaining hegemony forces retreated rather than faced the unexpected threat. From the colony's defense center, Ambassador Trell's aide watched in shock as battle footage streamed in. She recorded in her log, "The humans didn't just fight. They seemed to transform on the battlefield, becoming something primal. The enemy forces broke formation at the sight of them. Our own troops report that the humans moved with a speed and aggression that defied training parameters. Most disturbing, they appeared to experience positive emotional responses during combat, what they call the thrill of the fight." As the last hegemony ships departed the system, Confederation commanders gathered to review the battle. The humans had saved the colony, but violated numerous combat protocols. They took unnecessary risks, one commander argued. Their tactics had no logical foundation, yet they succeeded where our approaches failed. Another pointed out, with minimal casualties. General Voss, who had overseen their training, studied the footage carefully. They think differently. They see opportunities where we see only obstacles. This is why we recruited them. Back on Earth, Dr. Junba worked late in his laboratory. As a xenobiologist specializing in hegemony research, he had been granted access to communications captured during the battle. He played the recordings again, focusing on one particular exchange. When hegemony forces first spotted the human soldiers, their communications had erupted with a specific term that the translation software struggled to interpret. After hours of linguistic analysis, Jun finally understood. He sent an urgent message to Commander Deli. "I've discovered something in hegemony communications. Their word for human doesn't translate to ally of Confederation or even enemy combatant. Their word for us translates roughly to the Chaos Bringers. They fear us more than they fear the Confederation. They recognize something in us that the Confederation is only beginning to understand." Aboard the Steadfast Dawn, as the human soldiers celebrated their victory, Jihoon found a quiet moment to call Yuna to his quarters. "The Confederation is watching us differently now," he told her. "Did you see their faces when we returned?" Yuna nodded, not just pride in a victory. Fear at what they've unleashed. "We need to be careful," Jihoon said softly. "We're not just soldiers to them. We're weapons." Neither of them noticed the small monitoring device hidden in the room's lighting fixture, transmitting their conversation directly to Confederation High Command. The Confederation War Room hummed with activity as officers studied the massive holographic display. 12 star systems glowed blue, reclaimed from hegemony control. In each, human combat units had been the deciding factor. Commander Jihoon Park entered the room, and conversations quieted. Even after 6 months leading human forces, he still noticed how Confederation officers watched him. A mix of respect, awe, and unease. His battle armor, scared from dozens of engagements, made him instantly recognizable. "Commander Park," Admiral Vex greeted him with a formal bow. "Your victory at Proxima Station exceeds expectations. The hegemony retreated from the entire sector." Jihoon nodded politely. "My soldiers did their duty. We lost 7 good people. Acceptable losses for such strategic gain," the Admiral replied. Jihoon kept his face neutral, though the casual dismissal of human lives bothered him. The Confederation had grown too comfortable with spending human lives to win their war. Later, in his private quarters aboard the flagship Resolute, Jihoon met with his inner circle, Captain Yuna Choi, Tactical Specialist Mina Song, and Operations Chief Ta Han. The room had been swept for listening devices, and Mina's signal jammer hummed softly in the corner. "Earth's political influence has grown exponentially," Mina reported. "The Confederation Council has offered us 3 seats, more than any species except the founding races. They need us too much to refuse us now," Tai added. 10,000 human soldiers have changed the course of a war they fought for centuries. Ji-hoon activated a secure tablet. This is why I called you here. Yuna discovered something during the Proxima operation. Yuna placed a data crystal on the table. I accessed the station's secure archives before we destroyed it. These are classified Confederation documents about the war's origins. The display showed star charts, battle plans, and diplomatic records dating back hundreds of years. They're not telling us everything about this war, Ji-hoon told them as they reviewed the files. The hegemony didn't start this conflict. They were a peaceful civilization until 50 years ago. Minna frowned. That contradicts everything in our briefings. Exactly, Yuna said. According to these records, the hegemony began aggressive expansion after detecting something beyond the galactic rim. Something that frightened them enough to seek new territory and resources rapidly. And the Confederation responded with force rather than diplomacy. Ji-hoon concluded, "We're fighting people who are running scared, not conquerors." Back on Earth, Dr. Junba worked tirelessly in his laboratory. As Earth's foremost xenobiologist, he had been granted access to both Confederation and hegemony biological data. For months, he had noticed peculiar patterns in human DNA compared to other sentient species. His secure terminal chimed with an incoming call. Commander Dali's face appeared on screen. "Doctor, you said it was urgent," Dai said, his expression serious. Jun nodded, dark circles under his eyes showing his exhaustion. "I've confirmed my theory. Our DNA contains markers that cannot be explained by natural evolution." He sent files to Dai's terminal, complex genetic sequences highlighted against comparative alien DNA. Most sentient species in the Confederation evolved similar traits: cooperation, caution, empathy as primary drivers, Jun explained. Humans are different. We have genetic sequences specifically enhancing aggression, pain tolerance, and tactical thinking. "What are you suggesting?" Dai asked, though his expression showed he already suspected. "We were made for this," Jun said quietly. "Some ancient species created humans as warriors. Our aggressive traits, our ability to function despite injury, our quick adaptation to weapons. These aren't evolutionary accidents. We were designed as biological weapons." Dai sat back, processing the information. "Who? The Confederation?" "No, the markers are at least 50,000 years old. But someone knew what they were looking for when they found Earth. The Confederation didn't discover us by accident." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent alert. Dai's assistant appeared on a secondary screen. "Sir, we've received an unusual transmission. A hegemony vessel has entered the solar system under a flag of truce. They're requesting direct communication with Earth leadership." Dai's eyes widened. "Patch it through to my secure channel." The screens reorganized, and a hegemony representative appeared. Unlike the soldiers Ji-hoon's forces had fought, this being wore elaborate civilian garb. Its voice translated with a resonant quality. "I am Speaker Soln of the Hegemony Council. I come seeking direct dialogue with humanity, without Confederation interference." Dai's training kept his expression neutral. "I'm Commander Lee of Earth Defense. Why have you bypassed diplomatic channels?" "Because your Confederation allies have lied to you," the speaker replied simply. "And time grows short for all sentient life in this galaxy." The revelation spread through human forces like wildfire. Despite Confederation efforts to control information, Ji-hoon ensured that Jun's discovery and the hegemony's message reached every human unit. Earth's leadership debated their next move while human soldiers continued fighting, but now with questions about their purpose. 3 days later, Commander Dali sat in Earth's secure diplomatic chamber. On one side of the table sat Ambassador Trell and Admiral Vex of the Confederation. On the other, Speaker Soln of the Hegemony. Between them, holographic displays showed evidence from both sides. "Your Confederation allies have used you," the Hegemony representative explained, pointing to star charts showing migration patterns. "We are not conquerors. We flee from something worse beyond the galactic edge." The displays showed a dark region spreading at the galaxy's edge, consuming stars. "The Devourers," Soln continued, "an ancient force that consumes all life energy. Our scientists detected their approach 50 years ago. We began relocating our populations inward, away from the rim." You invaded Confederation worlds. Admiral Vex countered. We requested sanctuary. Solm corrected. When denied, we took what we needed to survive. Day studied the evidence before him. And humanity's role in this. Dr. Ba has discovered that humans appear genetically engineered for warfare. Ambassador Trell shifted uncomfortably. We were aware of certain unique qualities in human genetics. Ancient legends speak of a warrior species created to fight the Devourers in a previous cycle. You knew, Day said, his voice dangerously quiet. You found Earth because you were looking for weapons against both the hegemony and these Devourers. Humanity's purpose is noble, Trell insisted. You were created to defend all life in the galaxy. Created to die for you, Day corrected. Speaker Xolm leaned forward. The Confederation will sacrifice your people at the edge to buy time. We offer alliance. Combine our technology with your fighting capability. Together, we might find another solution. Day faced an impossible decision. Continue fighting for allies who had manipulated them, or trust the enemy they'd been killing. He opened a communication channel to Jihoon, still commanding forces at the front lines. You've heard everything, Day asked. Jihoon nodded, his face grim on the display. Every human soldier knows now. We await Earth's decision. Day looked between the Confederation and hegemony representatives. Neither of you gets to decide humanity's destiny. We are not your weapons. We are not your saviors. We are not your sacrifices. He stood. Earth will establish a neutral zone. All human forces are ordered to disengage from offensive operations effective immediately. Admiral Vex rose in alarm. You cannot. The battle line will collapse without human units. Then perhaps it's time for genuine negotiation between your peoples, Day replied. Humanity will forge its own path forward, not as the galaxy's weapons, but as its mediators. As the orders reached human forces throughout Confederation space, Jihoon gathered his soldiers on the command ship. Today we stop being someone else's war gods, he told them, and start deciding our own fate. The massive holographic chamber of Earth's United Council building had never held so many different species. Human diplomats sat alongside representatives from both the Confederation and the hegemony. The tension in the room felt like a physical presence. Commander Jihoon Park stood at attention beside Captain Yume Choi as President Su Kim addressed the gathering. Though tired from their journey from the front lines, both soldiers maintained perfect military bearing. For too long, humanity has served as weapons in a conflict we barely understood, President Kim said, her voice firm despite the gravity of the moment. Today, that changes. The Confederation ambassador shifted uncomfortably. The hegemony speaker remained perfectly still. We are neither pawns nor gods of war, President Kim continued. Humanity will forge its own path. We propose a three-way alliance against the true threat, the entities you call the Devourers. Jihoon watched the aliens' reactions. The revelation of humanity's engineered origins had shocked Earth, but the response was uniquely human. Rather than despair at being created as weapons, humanity had embraced a new purpose, protecting all life, not just taking it. Over the next week, human commanders from across the galaxy gathered on Earth. Battle-hardened soldiers who had fought the hegemony now sat in strategy rooms with their former enemies, sharing tactics and intelligence. In orbit, Earth's modest fleet of 20 ships, built with Confederation technology, but modified by human engineers, prepared for a new mission. No longer would they serve as attack craft for the Confederation. Now they would stand as a neutral force. The Confederation Council rejected Earth's proposal, demanding human forces return to the front lines. The Devourers remain a distant threat, Admiral Vex insisted. The hegemony invasion is immediate and real. We didn't see it before, Yuna told Jihoon as they left the failed negotiation. The Confederation fears the hegemony almost as much as the Devourers. They've been fighting too long to trust now. 3 days later, the Confederation ultimatum arrived. Human forces would return to combat stations or face severe sanctions. Earth's access to advanced technology, medicine, and trade would be cut off. Jihoon stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned Earth Defense Ship Protector. Through the view screen, he watched as the Confederation battle fleet took position near Jupiter. Behind Earth, a hegemony diplomatic vessel waited. They're calling our bluff, Ji-hoon said to Yuna. They don't believe we'll actually stand against them. Confederation forces outnumber us 20 to 1, Minna noted from the tactical station. Their weapons systems outclass ours significantly. But they need us more than we need them, Tai added. They've grown dependent on human soldiers. Ji-hoon opened a channel to all 20 human vessels. This is Commander Park. Take positions between the fleets. Defensive formation only. We are not here to fight. We're here to prevent fighting. The human ships moved with precision, forming a line between the advancing Confederation fleet and the hegemony vessel. A bold move that could easily lead to disaster. Admiral Vex's voice came through the communication system. Commander Park, remove your vessels immediately. This is your final warning. Ji-hoon took a deep breath. Admiral, we will protect both sides from mutual destruction. The Devourers approach and divided, we all fall. Together, we have a chance. He sent data packets to both fleets, the combined research of human and hegemony scientists showing the Devourer advance. The cosmic entities had consumed 3 star systems in the past month alone. My people tried to warn the Confederation for decades, the hegemony speaker added on an open channel. Now we have no more time for old hatreds. For tense hours, the standoff continued. Then, slowly, the Confederation vessels pulled back. We will hear your proposal, Admiral Vex finally conceded. 2 months later, an unprecedented force gathered at the galaxy's edge. Human ships flew alongside Confederation cruisers and hegemony vessels. 3 civilizations united against a common threat. From the bridge of the Protector, Ji-hoon observed the darkness beyond the last star system. Scientific instruments detected the approaching Devourers, entities of pure energy that consumed the life force of entire worlds. They're coming, Minna reported. Multiple signatures, larger than anything we've encountered. The combined fleet's strategy incorporated strengths from all 3 civilizations: Confederation technology, hegemony scientific knowledge, and human tactical innovation. Yuna had spent weeks coordinating the defense plan, creating a system that allowed the different forces to work together despite their differences. All ships, execute Pattern Alpha, Ji-hoon ordered as the first wave of Devourers emerged from the darkness. They appeared as swirling masses of dark energy, distorting space around them. Where they passed, stars dimmed. The combined fleet engaged, energy weapons firing in coordinated patterns to create containment fields. The battle raged for hours. Ships from all 3 fleets took damage. When a hegemony colony ship carrying civilians came under direct attack, Ji-hoon didn't hesitate. Intercept course, he ordered. The Protector moved between the colony ship and the approaching Devourer. Our shields won't hold against direct contact, Ta warned. Evacuate non-essential personnel. Ji-hoon replied calmly. Yuna, signal the Confederation forces to prepare extraction. The Protector shuddered as the Devourer's energy field impacted their shields. Systems failed across the ship, but they held position long enough for the colony ship to escape. As emergency protocols engaged, Ji-hoon saw something unexpected. Confederation rescue craft approaching, risking their own safety to retrieve the human crew. Across the battlefield, similar scenes unfolded. Species that had been enemies now saved each other. Hegemony scientists provided crucial data that allowed Confederation weapons to be effective. Human tacticians coordinated movements that kept casualties at a minimum. For 3 days, the battle continued. The Protector, severely damaged but still operational, served as Yuna's command center. She coordinated a defense strategy incorporating both alien forces technologies, Confederation energy fields modified with hegemony gravitational technology, deployed using human-designed unpredictable patterns. On the 4th day, the Devourers retreated. Whether defeated or simply deterred remained unclear, but the combined fleet had held the line. As the damaged ships limped home, representatives from all 3 civilizations met aboard a neutral station. What had begun as an emergency alliance had revealed a greater truth. They needed each other. The Galactic Council proposal is simple, President Kim explained 6 months later, as representatives gathered to sign the founding charter. Equal representation for all sentient species. Mutual defense. shared knowledge. No single race dominant over others. The chamber that had once held tense adversaries now hosted cautious allies. The document they signed established humanity's place in the galaxy, not as conquerors, not as servants, but as equals. Ambassador Trell approached Jihoon after the ceremony. The Confederation diplomat seemed to have aged years during the recent events. I've been studying human history since our first contact, Trell said. Your kind has always walked a line between creation and destruction, between savagery and compassion. We contain multitudes, Jihoon replied. As do all thinking beings. Trell nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps, the ambassador noted, writing the observation in the founding document's margin. Humans were created as war gods, but they have chosen to be guardians instead. Later, as Earth celebrated its new place in the galactic community, Jihoon stood with Yuna, Mina, and Tai on a balcony overlooking Seoul. The city lights mirrored the stars above, stars that now represented possibility rather than battlefields. What happens when the Devourers return? Tai asked. They will come back, stronger next time. Then we'll be ready, Jihoon replied. Not just as warriors, but as part of something greater. Yuna looked up at the night sky. They engineered us for war, but we chose our own purpose. Guardian is just another word for warrior who found something worth protecting. Mina added with a smile. Above them, the first ships of the new Galactic Council fleet passed overhead. Vessels staffed by mixed crews of humans, Confederation, and hegemony personnel. No longer enemies, no longer merely allies of convenience, but the beginning of a true civilization spanning the stars. Jihoon raised his glass. To finding our own path. The end,